Before I begin, I will say, Worshipful Master, Wardens, and Brethren, I'm glad to be here. I wish I could make more of our meetings. Unfortunately, this has been a very challenging and busy year for me. As you know, I live in Florida, so I bring you fraternal greetings from Most Worshipful Robert J. Lambert, the Grand Master of Masons of Florida, to whom I get to serve as his District Deputy Grand Master this year. So it's been a lot of fun. Rex and I have been having conversations about what that's like, and yeah, busy a lot. My wife has enjoyed traveling the state, and one of the nice things about my Grand Master in Florida this year is his big focus on esotericism, education and symbolism around esotericism. That's his big, one of his big thrusts for us. And so everywhere that I have officially visited, I've tried to give Masonic education, which is heretofore not really been done. And this is actually a talk that I gave at one of my lodges during an official visit, and folks said they really liked it. So I figured I would try it out on this group, and we'll see how that works, right? Okay, so I won't belabor the point about symbolism in general. Brethren of this lodge, we all, I think, appreciate symbolism more than maybe, let's say, your average Mason. We tend to like to think deeper into the meanings of the symbolism, and we know Freemasonry, right, is veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. So I think my preface to symbolism would be just that we find, obviously, that symbols tend to have different meanings at different levels to so many people. So it may mean, a symbol might mean one thing to a non-Mason. It might mean another thing to a person who is not as schooled in Masonic symbolism, and it might mean a third thing altogether, or others, to folks that are deeply schooled or entrenched in Masonic symbolism. And I think that's kind of one of the neat things about educating yourself, is that as you become perhaps a more educated Mason, you tend to find more possibilities in the symbolism. So I want to start with something that's non-Masonic to illustrate kind of this point. And that is a pretty common nursery rhyme that many of us are probably familiar with, and that is the story of Humpty Dumpty. Right, so we all know, as the old children's rhyme goes, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again, right? So if we think about, like, what did that teach us when we were a kid, right? Does anybody remember what you were supposed to learn about that from being a kid? Why did you learn that? Why did you hear it? What was the lesson behind that?
Don't fall off the roof.
Don't fall off the roof.
When you break an egg, you can't reassemble it.
Yeah, right?
Not all problems are fixable.
Sure, right? And so all of us were probably given some kind of illustration of what that simple rhyme was meant to teach us. I would propose to you, perhaps, that there is, in fact, some even deeper symbolic meaning behind something as simple as Humpty Dumpty. Perhaps, my brothers, it is not a children's verse at all, and rather, it is a warning about the dangers of overarching pride. Pride, of course, was a sin of Adam, who we know, the first man, who, to quote Milton from the poem Paradise Lost, brought death unto the world and all our woe. So why is Humpty Dumpty this symbol of pride, perhaps? Well, primarily because he's an egg sitting on a wall. Which is a very dangerous position, to the point that you are made. Don't sit on the wall, you might fall off, right? Perhaps he should have never placed himself in that position at all. But by sitting on that wall, Humpty himself attempts to go above and beyond his limits as an egg. In sitting there, he tries to perhaps overreach himself to be like a man or a person, something that an egg is decidedly not. We might draw a corollary to the position of Adam, who wanted to be like God and know God. Like Adam, who attempts to reach beyond his limits of nature, Humpty brings about and deserves his fall. In fact, the fall is perhaps the most important word in that poem. As we think about literally and symbolically, the fall to represent the fall of man from grace into sin. Like Adam, who is cast out of paradise, and who suffers physical hardship resulting from his excessive pride, so too does Humpty Dumpty, our nursery rhyme Adam, perhaps, broken by his fall and never made whole again. So a perhaps different slant on something we all grew up and knew as a kids. Okay, so why did I start with that? I'm going to now transition this into Masonic context, something that we all have probably heard. In Florida, in our ritual, it is recited by the chaplain during the circumambulation of the Master Mason's degree. Although I have been told and learned that in Mississippi, it is the worshipful master who recites this very common set of scripture. And so it comes from, of course, Ecclesiastes. And it goes as follows. Remember now the Creator in the days of thy youth, when the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Well, the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, and so on, right? Well, I've heard, like you probably this many times, and I understood the words, but I often would find myself listening in the middle of a degree trying to think, like, what's really going on here? Like, what are they talking about? What are we trying to impart upon this soon-to-be Master Mason that is making his way around the lodge? And, any Bible scholar would tell you that they pretty much know what this means, but maybe the Masonic ritual is trying to teach us something as well. And so I offer you this, that this is perhaps what that is talking about. And I'm going to break it down verse by verse. So let us begin with symbolism in mind. Remember now the Creator in the days of thy youth, where the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. This refers to the advent of old age. Old age being a very common theme in the Master Mason's degree, right? No surprise there. Well, the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, which suggests that in old age there is a general decay in the powers and facilities of our minds. The understanding that we possess becomes obscured, our memory fails, and the will becomes more feeble. Nor the clouds return after the rain refers to the succession of infirmities and pains which attend the winter of man's life. In the days when the keepers of the house shall tremble refers to the arms and hands that begin to tremble in old age. And the strong man shall bow themselves alludes to our lower limbs which bend forward and weaken in advanced age, and also refers to the spine which tends to bend as we begin to age and the years of age begin to take their toll. And the grinders cease because they are few refers to the loss of our teeth, so common among aging men. And those that look out of the window be darkened. Here the window, my brothers, connotates the eyes, which no longer function as properly as our vision becomes dimmer and dimmer. And the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. The passage describes a common facial expression seen in the elderly, when the lips become compressed and flattened because of the lack of teeth. Since the gums are used for mastication, the diet changes from soft food, and the sound of chewing is not heard as loudly, if at all. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. Man in his eldest age sleeps so lightly that he seems to be aroused from his sleep by perhaps even the twittering of small birds or the smallest noises in the house that we might have. And the daughters of music shall be brought low. Music can no longer charm the older person if his hearing become impaired. And when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fears shall be in the way. Here we find a poetic reference to the difficulty for the old person in climbing hills or ascending stairs. Note also the fear of crossing the way, or perhaps the highway, the road. And the almond tree shall flourish. Well, the flower of an almond tree is white, which refers to the graying hair as we age. And the grasshopper shall be a burden. In the weakness of old age, weights cannot be borne, and even the lightest labor can become quite burdensome for us. We can't lift what we used to. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, the silver cord referring to the spinal cord, which passes the entire length of the spine and again becomes weakened as we get older. Or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. The fountain denotes the heart. weakened in old age, can no longer pump the blood through the circulatory system like it once did. Here we find a wonderful description of the dry and emaciated, querulous old man. All these physical signs indicate the approach of time. When man goeth to his long home, and the mourners shall go about in the streets, then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. And in this last sentence is expressed a principal tenet of Freemasonry, and that is the immortality of the soul. Well, I think that this brief recapitulation, perhaps, of something we've all heard might go a long way into explaining some of the differences in symbolism. Yeah, I hope that maybe if you've never thought about that verse or those series of verses before, the next time you attend a Master Mason degree and you hear it, it might take on a new sense of thought to you. So, with that, brethren, worshipful Master, I appreciate the opportunity to share. Thank you.